Another week, another episode of I Could Never Be here on the Popcorn Talk Network. This week, we're coming off the high of Easter. I feel like Easter is one of those, main holidays throughout the year. Easter, Thanksgiving, or Christmas, that it's like a high. You're maybe with family or friends. You're taking some time. Hopefully, as we gave in the advice for a better life last week, take some time, relax, maybe just step back and be thankful for what you have and be thankful for everything that's around you. And hopefully, we're able to do that. And hopefully, now you're approaching this week maybe with a fresh perspective. And just being able to now realize what you are thankful for, be able to lean into that more and be able to grow from that. And I know you guys are going to grow in this episode today because we have an incredible actress and director now on the show. She is making her directorial debut in just a few days at the TriBeCa Film Festival in New York. Very exciting. Can't wait to talk to her about her past projects and about her current project, which again is an incredibly real and authentic project, which is great. That's something that we need more of, especially in today's society. I want to shout out last week. Thank you to People Magazine, Fox News, Us Weekly. So many other outlets picked up our interview with Paul Green. If you guys haven't checked that out, make sure you go do that on YouTube. You can also watch every single episode on Apple Podcasts. Just search for I Could Never Be in your podcast forum. As always, we start this show for some advice for a better life, and today is that you give credit where credit is due. And this is proper coming off last week where I said we were picked up by People Magazine and Fox News and Us Weekly, Refinery 29 and Perez and so many other outlets, but that's just not me. That's just not this show. That is an entire team here, especially at Popcorn Talk Network, that does that, and Keven, Undergaro, Maria Menounos. I'm so thankful for them every week. And so to give credit where credit is due, I heard someone put it as recently, don't claim to be flying when you are just standing on the shoulders of giants. And so realize who the giants have been in your life, who have lifted you up, who you're now standing on their shoulders, and give them some credit. Give them some praise. Shout them out. Tweet about them. Put it up an Instagram picture. It's so easy now with all the technology to be able to just say thank you. So you don't have to write them a card. Send a tweet. Do something little. Write them a card, though, if you want. It never fails. Just do something to show your appreciation. And I'm appreciative for today's guest who is in studio. Again, I talked about she's making her directorial debut with a film, Lady Haters. It is at TriBeCa Film Festival here in just a couple days, but she is known from many other things. The Fosters on ABC, Mayans on FX. Please welcome Alex Barreto.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for coming in. We're T-minus 2-3 days. I mean, it's...
Yeah, it's happening. I go in a red eye tomorrow, and then it all happens for 10 days. Yeah.
So what are the nerves? What are you feeling right now where 48 hours... T-minus 48 hours, like a countdown.
Yeah. It's always the Q&As at festivals that can always be quite interesting. You never know what question you're going to get. And, so it's just, this is a film, it's a very personal story. And so I think, part of the nerves come from, like, will people understand it? Will they get it? Do they get my point of view? Mm-hmm. So all of that kind of, the jitters.
Do you rehearse that? You're talking about the Q&A. Or do you have a writer asking you questions? You're like, here's what someone could say. What do you answer?
This is not a bad idea. I should do this. No, I don't, because you just never know what they're going to ask, and you never know what kind of audience you're going to get. Like one night, everybody could love it. The next night, I could actually get booze. So.
Well, that's,
it's not going to happen.
That's what you're doing here. You got live TV going on right now, which this show is live. If you guys are joining us on YouTube, join the chat. Ask a question. I'll filter them in, and we'll be able to ask Alex. But it's preparing you, because it's live Q&A.
It can't, this is the best thing to do before a Q&A. It is a Q&A.
I want to talk about this film, Lady Haters, which if people might hear that and be like, okay, what is going on here? What is this about? It is a very authentic, and you mentioned it's about your own life.
Yes.
It's very authentic, it's very real, and I want to praise you for that, because in a world where so much content, whether it's on social media, on your phone, or wherever, is people trying to appear better than they are, different than they are.
Right. And this was basically my answer to the march, the Women's March. Mm-hmm. I think when all of that was going down, I had to take a good look at myself and realize that, like, I had kind of grown up calling myself a guy's girl, and like was really proud of that. And and all of a sudden I started realizing, like, that's not a great thing to say. You know, it's kind of against women in a way. Like, I'm basically saying guys are better than girls, and I'm a better person because I'm more like a guy. And I had to take a serious look at that, and I did, and I wrote a script about it. I wrote a feature version first, which really kind of digs deeper. And yeah, and I kind of had to, like, take it, laugh at it, but then, you know, really look at what it meant.
How long were you feeling this way, or maybe like looking and being like, this I'm not exactly the same? I know the film, it takes place in a yoga studio. Were there a lot of situations like that in real life where you were just like, this is not, I'm not like these other people?
Yes, yeah. Like, so, okay, it also, the march, but then really it also came from, I went to a spa week with a good friend of mine, and, you know, I just thought, I'm going to go to a spa week. I'm going to get a couple massages, you know, have a good time, drink by the pool. And I got there, and it basically was everything that I kind of hate, right? Like, all this, like, very new agey kind of stuff, and it was like 99% women, and I just, like, kind of looked around at this place, and I didn't hate it. I actually had a great time, but I also laughed at it quite a bit. The irony is, I went and wrote this story, and my friend who I went with has a meditation studio now. So we went completely different paths. I actually filmed in her meditation place, yeah.
What is, I mean, do you hear from other girls that is this society, or like what is the reasoning behind it? Is this society pushing females to act in a certain way, or is this just what do you think?
So so I think that, so going back to that, it's about me and me growing up, and I think, you know, what I ended up realizing about the whole me calling myself a guy's girl thing was that I was insecure about being a woman, and I didn't know kind of how to be a woman based on society's idea of a woman, right? Like, I hated shopping, I hated getting dressed up. I just hated a lot of things that people expected from a woman.
They were very feminine,
right?
Things.
Like, and I was like, well, I'm not feminine, and then therefore I didn't know how to be around women, and so I just kind of like shut myself out. So it wasn't that I didn't like women; it's that I didn't feel like I fit into what people thought I should be. So that is what I realized.
And I think that goes both ways too. Like, this isn't for any guys who are watching this. This is not just a girls thing.
Totally.
This is something that a lot of guys grow up with and may like, maybe I have a little more metro, you know, tendencies, or want to be able to do things that are not as burly masculine. And it's important to have these conversations now.
Yeah, I mean, my husband hates sports. Do you know how much crap he gets about hating sports? You know, like, so it's the same thing, I think. So I think we're coming to a time when we're less about kind of putting people in these little boxes. I hope, anyway.
You wrote, did I read, I think you wrote the script in like a couple weeks?
A day.
A day?
So I wrote the feature, that took longer. But what happened was, so I wrote the script, and anybody who read it was like, you should direct this. And I said, I've never directed anything, this is crazy. But I'll try. So I started submitting to labs and everything, and you know, the first thing they asked for is a sample of your work, and I didn't have a sample of my work, and I was like, oh, well, I guess I can't do this. And Ryder, my husband, was like, yes, you can, you're a writer. And I'm like, oh, well, what am I going to do, write it in a day? He's like, yes, you can, you're a writer. And I was like, oh, I can. So I wrote it, and I asked my producing partner, Taylor Feltner, if he would produce it, and like within a couple of weeks, we got it up and shot.
Wow. Was that a crazy couple weeks of just like something every day? Did you look back when you got done and you were like, we just did that in a couple weeks?
Definitely. But also, like, I had kind of been prepped because I have produced things before. I produced a feature with Taylor. So as far as like, you know, getting stuff done right away, like it was it felt pretty good. I was more terrified about the directing aspect of it. I think the hardest part was casting it because we cast, there's 2 leads, but then there's 13 women in the room. And I wanted to make sure they were all actors, and I wanted to make sure I could, you know, bring some diversity to the cast. And so I think just casting it was one of the harder.
Talk about that switch of putting on the director hat, because like we said, you've been an actress, you've produced projects before.
Yeah.
Taking on the directorial role is, certainly more responsibility.
Yes. Yes, but I think everything leading up to this obviously prepped me, and I will say the week before we started shooting, I would be up like all night wondering like, what am I doing? I don't know what I'm doing. And like all of a sudden I forgot how to make a movie. Like I'm like, what are scenes? What is that? How does it start? And then like I got on set and it was like, oh, I know all this.
Yeah.
And so it felt great.
I think when you've like you said, I think you've been in the industry, for over 15 years, and how things. It's like riding a bike at a certain point.
Yeah.
What do you enjoy about being behind the camera and not being in front of the camera?
Being behind the camera, especially as a director, you're the one making the choices. As an actress, you get a script and you learn your lines. You put as much as yourself as you can into the role. But ultimately, somebody can say, "No, I don't like that. I don't like the way you're doing it. Do it this way." And it could be totally not your idea of the character, but you have to go with it because that is your job as an actor. As a director, I get to kind of work. I get to make choices, and I get to be way more creative than as an actor.
As this was about your life and is about your life, did you consider casting yourself in there, or is that maybe the plan for the feature?
No, I'm not going to do it. It was so awesome watching Alan Rachel play this role because it added 10 more layers that I would have just brought myself, obviously. But she brought me plus her, and it was so fun to see. And I'm not. People would ask me that all the time. I'm like, the only way I'm playing this role is if like the actress just doesn't show up. Then I will put myself into it. And
then you said a prayer. Please don't let that actually happen.
Please don't.
Putting that out there, but that is not viable.
Don't do that. Yeah. No. Yeah. So. It was
Someday,
great.
Do you want to be able to direct and act in something?
I think so, definitely. Yeah. But for me, this is such a big step to become a director. Like, I want to give it my all, and I want to make it about that. And I don't want to, like, even this short, I didn't invite anyone to help me on set except my crew. I didn't have my husband show up. I didn't have, my friend who's a great editor show up to help me. I was just like, I'm going to do this because I'm going to either fall on my face, on my own, or I'm going to succeed on my own. Like, I just needed to know that I could do it. And that's kind of how I feel about the feature, too.
And I feel like this, in looking at this is the perfect example of what you're doing in directing this as what you're talking about in the film.
Right.
Of, certainly a realm where, thank goodness, we're getting a lot more female directors involved in making projects, involved in making movies or shorts or anything, whereas 10, 15 years ago, that was not. That was a lady thing where maybe just actresses or just producers. Totally, and there wasn't these, women taking a stand in that. Again, I congratulate you on that because that is the perfect example of what you're doing with this.
Right. Thank you.
TriBeCa takes place in New York. You're from New York. Did you grow up wanting to be at TriBeCa, or was TriBeCa always a goal?
TriBeCa. So I've actually been to TriBeCa before. I produced my first short film I ever produced. Actually won best online short at TriBeCa. But yeah, TriBeCa it's still that, to me and hopefully others, still that festival that you're like, oh, I think this means something. Like, it has a prestige to it, and it's in New York City, so it's just like you can't really beat that. I'm so excited to be back, and my family's there.
I think you said, your family's there, and you having your family come out for it.
My parents are gonna fly out with my 4-year-old son. Wish them luck, everyone. We're gonna make it a big family affair.
How much did your acting experience come in handy in making this?
I think it came in just having to work with 13 actors in one room. I was so conscious of everybody's feelings, but also just knowing that, to me, especially in comedy, the more comfortable you are, the better you are going to be. So, like, for me, it was like, having a whole button. We didn't have a ton of time, but as much time as we can to rehearse and as much time as we can to make people just kind of play around and be silly. And I like, you know, gave everybody permission to just go way over the top. You know, we could pull it back, but like just do it and see what happens. And so I feel like I have a shorthand talking to actors because I'm an actor. And I'm really picky about performances because of that too.
Well, I like what you said too about go over the top, because so much on camera, it might seem like you're over the top. Right. And then you watch it back and you're like,
oh, you're sleeping.
Oh, you're not even.
I was taking a nap.
Are you showing any emotion? Or?
No. Yeah, and you know, it's a comedy. I mean, it was funny. We ended up totally using the mellower takes, but I think those were possible because, you know, even I used to teach acting to kids, and the thing I would always tell the kids was like, make mistakes. It's okay. Like, totally don't try to be good. Don't try to be perfect. And I would try to explain that to parents, and they would look at me like I was crazy. Like, some of them fired me immediately. But it's like, to me, it's like, yeah, make mistakes. Just make mistakes.
You can't fix something unless it's broken.
Right. Sure.
that is, it's something that a former boss taught me, and he was a Google engineer, and he was like, we used to pride people at Google if you found a flaw or you broke something.
Sure, yeah.
Because that means we can fix it.
Right.
And if you don't do that, and sometimes people are always walking on eggshells, and you're like, no, you can't improve unless you know what you need to improve.
Yeah.
When did you teach?
That was probably a good 7 years ago. Yeah.
You enjoy that aspect of it?
I did, yeah. Yeah, it was fun.
Because I was looking at it, like, obviously you got the teaching, you got the acting, the producing, the directing. Some people, you know, grow up wanting to be just one. I want to just act. Right. Have you always wanted to be a part of the entire creative process?
No, the truth is I did want to just act. Like, that was, I came to LA as an actress, and I really wanted to do that. And, you know, I had good success in the beginning, but just as my career went on, I'm like, I just wanted more, and not more like needing more. I just wanted to be working. Like, you know, as an actress, you wait for the phone to ring half the time, and like, when I started writing, it's like, oh, every day I could wake up and write. And then, you know, the producing, it's like, well, every day I can, you know, make some phone calls and try to make some stuff happen. You know, and now I guess I'm doing 10 different things trying to make things happen, but it feels good. It feels, because now, like, every time I get an acting job, it feels like, oh, I got an acting job. What a gift I got. As opposed to, like, needing it. And
did you find yourself, I mean, you were on the Fosters and on Mayans, of like looking about what other people are doing and try to pick things up then, not just from actors, but from producers and directors and how they're controlling the scene? Totally,
yeah. I think especially by the time I was on Fosters, because I was already producing, that it was very important to kind of just sit on set and kind of like take a step back and listen to everything. You got to be careful, because like there starts to be a point where you think you know what's going on, and so then you try to start like, oh yeah, and then I always have to like pull back, like, no, they don't want my opinion.
This is not my project yet.
Here. Yeah, exactly.
What was your strategy? You mentioned when you moved to LA, and you're, you know, again, most actors, like you're saying, you're waiting for the phone or you're waiting for that email and some audition. Did you have a strategy of when you came here, or did you know anyone and they were like, here's what you need to do, or how did you break in? I did actually have a friend who had been here for a few years, and like she set me up on her couch, and she, like, back in the day, you know, there was no, I mean, I submitted, you know, headshots in an envelope and hoped for the best and hoped I was there for the phone call. But no, I didn't really have a strategy. It was like, get an agent, see what they could do, go on auditions, hopefully do a good job. I got pretty lucky, like within the first, I want to say the first year, I booked a recurring role on a Showtime series that was like one of the first Latino shows on television, Resurrection Boulevard. And I got like a couple of really good breaks in that, like, it was supposed to be a guest star, and then it turned into a recurring, and that happened like 5 times. Wow. And that felt awesome, you know. And then, you know, as the career went on, I still am doing the recurring roles, but it's also great because I get so much time to do everything else now. Yeah, it allows you to be able to direct and be able to create a project. Exactly, yeah. Did you know at that point, like, I don't want to say that how fortunate it was to be able to get those things right away? Yes, I did. Okay. I did, because I saw other people kind of struggling, and so yeah, I was very, very happy and thankful for those gigs. And you know, one of the
one of my recurring that was started as guest star and then became a recurring was a show called The District, and yeah, it was just a recurring guest star role. You know, walked away. And when I came back, the crew basically was like, well, we voted you best guest star because you were nice to everybody. So I was like, oh, thank you. And they're like, yeah, we were all talking about it. And then the producers decided to bring you back. I'm like, well, this is awesome. Like, what a lesson. Just like, be friendly to everybody and talk to everybody. And, you know, but also like that was a little bit of my... It's funny because I was like, 20-something at that point. So I was a little naive where I was going up to everybody, talking to everybody. And like now, you know, at my age, when I go on set, I do like kind of stay to myself and like, but I was very happy that I was so naive that I...
Do you see other young actors coming in and doing similar things? Or?
The talking to everybody? Yeah. No, actually, you know what? It doesn't even happen that much anymore because everybody's on their phone. Yeah. They're all Snapchatting.
Oh, it is a blessing. I read your blog on your website. Ooh, you had
which one was that?
So it talked about, it was a great piece, it was on the dog, the funeral for the dog.
Yep.
Oh my goodness.
I forgot about that.
Hilarious. Yeah. Which, go read this piece, by the way, because it definitely puts like LA in perspective. Oh, yeah. But you talked in there about having a spell. Yeah. Having, I think it was a year and a half at that point.
Of no work.
Of no work.
Yeah.
Was that no auditions? Was that?
It was barely any auditions. This was coming. Oh God, which spell was that? Because I had like 2 really bad spells. But yeah, it was like not many auditions. I thought that I was like going somewhere, so like I changed agents and I went to like a bigger agency, and I basically never heard from them again. And yeah, it was nothing. And so I got a job doing promotional modeling, which I thought was promotional modeling, but ended up being like bartending at a dog funeral, which is like, I can't tell you what that feels like, because they just told me I was going to bartend at a funeral, and I was like, okay, well, this is sad.
Yeah, like, this would be very somber.
And then I show up and I'm just like looking around. And everybody's like acting like this is a real funeral, like it's all set up, ready to go, and just no one's giving me the clue that it's a dog's funeral. And like on the screen, I mean, I should have figured this out. On the screen is like a picture of a dog, and it says Monty, and it has the years. And I was like, huh, that can't be. And I didn't really clue in officially until people started talking about the dog, and I'm like, this can't be right. This can't be right, but it was. What? And they asked me to come back again to do the second dog's funeral.
There was another dog? Did I miss this?
I did. It was.
Oh.
I didn't go.
Oh, man. But those are the jobs that you have to take.
Oh, yeah.
What is that like mentally? Not the covering, not Monty's funeral.
Yeah.
Let's take 2 seconds for Monty. All right, thank you. Monty,
he was a lovely dog, according to all the speeches. He was a lovely dog. He was great.
What is the mentality? Because obviously with any acting, acting is a perfect example for anyone trying to get a job and realizing that it's like this. Yep. It's up and it's down, and some days you'll get, 3 auditions and then you'll go a month without any. How was that mentally for you, or did you prepare yourself, or how did you stay strong mentally?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I didn't stay that strong. I mean, it was I wanted to quit all the time because, I think acting especially, you have to walk into a room with full confidence, and especially that time, like, I was waiting on people that I had worked with. Wow. Like, I had done, here's where it gets fun. I had booked a pilot, the lead in a pilot. It was a half-hour sitcom, and I got fired from it. But at that funeral was a woman who I was on the show with, and it was just like, like it was hard. I ran in the back and like just ran into the bathroom and like locked myself in when I saw her.
Is that a personal thing of like, I feel like we all go through that sometimes. when we have a situation that we feel is really awkward. And it's like,
Yeah.
everybody knows.
I know.
It happens, especially in this town.
Yeah.
Like you're saying,
I'm sure she thought nothing of it, or maybe didn't even remember me, to be honest. But yeah, I think that's all in your own head. Like your career and everything you're dealing with is obviously way more personal to you and important to you than it is to anybody else. It's like when you don't work for a year. Do you think anybody really knew that I didn't work for a year? They didn't know.
Yeah.
The only reason they knew is because I would talk about it and tell everybody about it. But they don't know. So that it's still it's your attitude and how you can move through it. And now, as I've gotten older and as I've been doing this for a while, I definitely know that. And I try not to ever talk negatively about the fact that I haven't been working, or I just try to, be super excited about the things that I do.
Yeah, and you're right. People know what you tell them.
Exactly.
So if you sound confident, and sometimes you fake it till you make it in this town. A lot of times you fake it till you make it in this town.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Let's go with most of the time.
Try to go with most of the time here. The next role was Pepper Dennis the next role after that?
After
that funeral?
After the funeral. I think it was, yeah.
Because that is the craziness of timing. Because obviously that's where you met Ryder.
Yeah, I met my husband.
So, if you think back of that year, what if you had gotten something else in that year and a half?
This is true. The funeral did it. The dog funeral did it.
With a funeral was rebirth.
Yeah. See? Yeah.
Are you not a believer in that? But do you look back now and realize that timing is just a way of life, and that things happen at certain times, like gigs that you weren't supposed to get things for certain reasons.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, Pepper Dennis, I wouldn't have Pepper Dennis was so I obviously got fired from that comedy, but then Pepper Dennis was the only other big comedy that I've done, and even I needed to grow into that and be confident enough to walk into that room and just be a silly character, and I don't think I would have been able to do that in my 20s. I think I wasn't I didn't know to just be able to fall on my face, and comedy sometimes takes that, you have to just be silly and like I said, make mistakes, and then obviously meeting my husband on that, I wasn't ready any other time. So.
Yeah, it all happens for a reason. What stopped you from quitting? You mentioned that you felt like quitting a couple times. What stopped you?
I think it's that I just love doing it so much, so I don't think I have the option of actually quitting. So I think every time every time I thought I was going to quit was because I got fired for something, or my agent dropped me, or I thought I was going to get a role and didn't, or I thought a show was going to be bigger than it was, blah blah blah. And I think the points that were the hardest, right, when I got fired, when my agent dropped me, what was really great was then the next, I would cry, I'd be upset, and then the next day I'm making changes, and then I would just do something different. And even something happened recently where a role I thought was going to be bigger ended up not. And I got really upset, and I said, I'm in my head, I was like, I'm done. I just can't do this anymore. And then instead of actually saying, being done, I just went online and just started submitting to every single director's lab that was available to me. I'm like, no, I'm not gonna quit. I'm not gonna quit. I'm gonna let them quit. I'm gonna do something else.
Yeah, you use that. It's a chip on your shoulder.
Yeah.
How much does it help having a strong creative partner? Because is that a pro or con? Sometimes people are like, oh, I want someone out of the industry. I want someone in the industry.
Right.
What has been your take, obviously, with Ryder?
Yeah, I think because we started working together. It's been great. I mean, every time I write something, he's the first person to read it. Every time he writes something, I'm the first person to read it. And we've, it's gone through different trials and tribulations from the beginning, because in the beginning, we didn't know how to talk to each other about our writing, and so we would get very offended. But now it's nothing. It's we hand it off, and we know we're just gonna get the honest truth, and nobody's gonna sugarcoat it or anything. And it's been great. And he also understands, TriBeCa comes up, and he knows that he's going to have to watch our son for a full week by himself, and there's no question of, no, you shouldn't be doing that. It's no, I get it. He gets it. He knows when I know when he goes off to do something.
I was going to say, it's sure it's the same. It's not just you handing things to him. It's vice versa, too.
Yeah.
You mentioned in the blog that crazy belief is still belief, which I love that line. I don't know if you remember writing that.
I kind of do.
But that to me was just something, and just that it keeps you driving forward.
Yeah, I think what I ultimately learned by writing that little blog was that I was making fun of these people, but it was unfairly so, because they, were holding on to something, and they were, living this life, and they were happy, and here I was, like, at that moment kind of negative and not, I don't know, like, just kind of feeling down, and then I realized, like, oh, I just have to believe in myself. I just have to, like, believe that I am going to be successful, and I'm going to succeed in this career, and that's way better than thinking negative stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. What is it like for you when you get a script or you get a role? Do you have a set things of, like, oh, I do this first, I try to get into the character, I read through. Do you have a schedule or
a process?
Yeah.
It's pretty simple. Like, a lot of what I've learned that works for me is really just kind of instinctual. And I have to kind of just trust that I get a tone of something. And so, yeah, pretty much I read it, and then I pull Ryder and make him read it with me. That's the big thing.
When you go on set, is there how do you get into character?
Well, so I guess because I've been in this, so it depends. Like, if it's an emotional role, then I have that whole thing. So probably the majority of my career in the beginning was all, like, very emotional. Like, I either was a drug addict or a murderer or an alcoholic.
Great life.
I mean, yeah, really uplifting. But then I would just listen to music. I mean, I'd pick a song for the scene, something that, like, tonally fits and that got me in the mood, and I would just sit there. I'd listen to, I'd kind of block everybody out before it was time to go on set. And I'm not one of those people that can, like, be, like, laughing with you and then all of a sudden crying in the corner. I gotta, listen to my music.
Having the director hat on, are you walking around and like trying to gather stories, or, like, do you feel inspired leaving the house and you're like, oh, maybe I could do this, or you see something and you're like, oh, that could be a script? Do you have a log or a journal or?
I do have a log. I have my best ideas at about 4 a.m. I wake up and my mind will just start going, and I just, like, kind of either grab my phone or paper and I just write them down. And, like, you'd think that they'd be crazy, like, those dream things. I'm like, but they've gone into my scripts, and they have fixed script problems all the time. So now, like, I used to get upset because I'm like, I'm up at 4 a.m. This is ridiculous. But now I'm like, oh, this is like a gift. I've got I got a gift.
Have you ever woken up in the morning and been like, where was I going with this?
Sometimes. I mean, there is one right now in my phone that I'm like, I have no idea what that is. It sounds super poetic. I have no idea what it is.
In like 3 days, you're going to wake up at 4 a.m. again and be like,
that's what it is.
That's what this is.
Exactly.
That's what this is.
I hope so, because it sounds really pretty. I just don't know what it is. So.
Yet. You don't know what it is
yet.
Yeah. What are common misconceptions about acting or Hollywood that you think people outside of the industry or outside of LA have? They're like, oh, acting must be this.
Oh, I think everybody thinks they could do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which, in some ways they can. I just think, like,
they can do it without training, is what you mean.
Yes.
Yeah. They can just hop right in and be like, oh, yeah, I can fake cry.
Yeah. And I think, like, people, they think if somebody's acting and they're acting like themselves, that's not a talent. When I think, like, if you can act like yourself on camera, that's, like, the most brilliant. I mean, obviously character work and all that, but, like, I think people they're like, well, I could do that. They're just being themselves. I'm like, do you know how much, like, relaxation and confidence you need to, like, be yourself on camera?
Yep. And it gets back to what you were saying. You do the takes where people are over the top.
Yeah.
Because you just in your regular life, that it doesn't come across immediately on camera. You have to convey it in a certain way.
Right, exactly.
How much does being a mother impact your work or now versus like when you were trying to really succeed in your maybe early 20s versus now looking at your approach to the industry and what you want to do? How much of a difference is that?
I think like as far as like what my time is worth is definitely different. Like when I was younger, if an audition came in, like I would say yes immediately because it's like, oh, I got to do this. I have to do this. And now I'm like, I'm a little pickier. I'm like, well, I don't really want to be on this show. I don't really want to do this. I'd rather spend time with my son. I don't want to have to go to Vancouver and leave my kid for this, particular show. And just like as, with the Fosters specifically, like they wrote my pregnancy into the script. Which was so amazing and lucky.
Yeah,
like,
that's a huge other challenge that could have happened.
Yeah, exactly. But it was interesting. Like I was doing these scenes while pregnant and essentially talking to my kids, saying that I'm a bad mother, and that I'm like, and that I'm a horrible person. And it was so. I mean, those emotions just were like. So there. So as far as that, it was like another gift.
Well, that's something I think, especially for females in Hollywood, it can be a challenge. Like you're saying, getting pregnant. Yeah. I mean, was that a concern at all when you?
It was. I mean, what I think it's what led me to wait to get. I mean, I waited pretty late to have a kid, and it was always my fear. It ended up not being a thing at all. Like, if anything, I was the busiest I have ever been while pregnant in this industry, and then also after, really. So I think, I mean, there's definitely challenges. So I don't want to like say that there's not challenges. You don't want to gloss over it. No, not at all. But I feel like I had to be very clear about what I wanted and how I wanted to work while having a kid, and be very clear with Ryder about what I was going to give up and what I wasn't going to give up, and vice versa for him too. And then I still do what I wanted. I still do what I want to do, and that was really important to me. And I think it's important, for my kid to see too.
How much of a reflection is that on the culture today in Hollywood versus maybe like 20 or 30 years ago? How much has that changed for accepting stuff like that and being able to write it into scripts and being able to be more open, just as your script says, about women empowerment?
Yeah. I think, I mean, look, we've come a long way. I still think we need some work, because I still think, the working woman still gets a lot of slack. They're still wondering why you're not home with your kid. And but we, I don't know, I guess we're in a good I think we're in a good space right now, but I think I don't know, what am I saying? Something about.
Your film obviously touches on that, a change in the culture and trying to make it okay, for people they look at this and they're like, oh, is it okay for women to be able to have these masculine, and it's like, yes, absolutely, just like it's okay the other way around for men.
Right.
Do you want to do more projects like that are, have a lesson to them?
I do, yeah. I mean, that's why I mean, obviously I'm going to continue and do the feature, because I do think it says a lot more about all of that. But I think anything I make, I want to have some kind of message. And it doesn't have to be like, bang over your head, but like, my producing partner and I had read scripts for like 2 years, and like there'd be so many good writers, and it would be like these fun scripts, and like, yep, that was entertaining, but it doesn't, why do I have to say this right now? Like, what is it saying? So I do think that anything that I write or direct or produce has to say something.
There has to be a purpose to getting it out there, an impact.
Yeah.
How do you surround yourself with people? Talking about your producing partner, we already talked obviously about Ryder, but talking about other people in your life who are on your team, how do you pick those people out? Has that been a progress?
Yeah, I think it's like, I think it's a slow process. You work with people, different projects, and then you realize like, oh, I connect with that person, and now I have like a group of people that I'll always send my scripts to, because I've read their scripts, and I respect them as writers, and then they've read mine and given me good notes, and I mean, I think it's just a process. You can't work great with everybody.
That's
I mean,
exactly
I don't think so.
You shouldn't have to work great, or you shouldn't have that impression that you will. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's not realistic.
It's not a thing. No.
What advice would you tell the 15 or the 20-year-old you breaking into the industry, looking back on it now, of how to pursue something, how to break in?
Right. I mean, I would tell myself to continue to be grateful for everything that comes your way, and just more. I think I definitely needed to be a little bit more positive back then. Like I needed to like when I look back at some of the things I did, I really wish I would have patted myself on the back a little bit more and been like you did great, you deserve this, and then just keep getting up. When you fall down, just get back up. Yeah, which I guess I maybe.
Do you want to encourage your son to act? I mean, he's 4, right?
He's 4, and he's already showing signs.
What are the signs?
Oh my God, he can actually do scenes from movies, and he plays the different parts. It's hysterical. So he's already doing it. So I don't know if we could stop it, but I don't know. We won't encourage it. We won't set him up on auditions or anything. But if
at least for another year.
At least for another year. At least for another year. Oh God!
Is that has to be something you think about though? Obviously,
we think about it all the time because Ryder was a child actor, and so that I think our main thing is he has to look at us and say, "I want to do it," and then we won't stop him. I mean, he's already in dance class. He's in a band.
Really?
Guys, he's in a band.
What instrument does he play in the band?
Oh, it's amazing. Keyboards. It's amazing. It's this class where they're at a live studio and. There's a band, and it culminates in a show on at a music venue. Wow. He plays keyboards.
I do definitely see it in his future. Then obviously, if he's in a band already and he's watching and performing on both sides and in dance.
Yeah, he's in a band.
Something entertainment there. Yeah, definitely gonna happen.
A little bit.
What drives you, now for achieving success or to be able to do something well? What drives you?
Ooh, that's a good question. What drives me? I mean, I think just what drives me. I should have this answer. Life. I just the need to be creative and I don't know how to just sit at a desk and just I need something creative. I need to put my ideas out there. And and obviously getting other people's ideas. I love working with people. I love hearing other people's ideas. I love the collaboration of it all. But I want to be creative. I want to.
It's something that isn't a lot of people who are in entertainment. It's a bug.
Yeah. Yeah.
They look at it and they're like, oh, maybe I don't need to do this. And then they go work some job that is not creative. And they're like, well, that was a good week.
I tried.
That week was exactly what I needed.
Yeah. Well, this is when I left college, I was scared to be creative. And I was scared to admit that that's what I wanted to do. So I got a full-time job. And the woman was so smart who hired me. She's like, I don't trust that this is what you're going to stay and do.
What was the job?
I was doing event planning for a college in Orlando. And I'm like, no, I'm going to do it. This is what I want to do. She's like, you're going to run off and become an actor. I'm like, no. Within 6 months, wow. I was leaving to go on auditions, and I booked things, and I called in sick. I'm so sorry if you're watching this. And I couldn't do it. I quit within 8 months.
And I think that probably kept you going in the times when you thought about quitting.
What else was I gonna do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You knew that anything it would be a money job, which is not again.
I'll take money jobs.
Money jobs you have to do sometimes. Yes. We've all done them in the industry. Yeah. How many people are out in LA driving Uber and Lyft right now? Not because they want to, but because it allows them to be able to reach that next audition. And
I have those jobs too. I mean, even some producing jobs are that. If I'm producing a commercial or something, it's not. There's not a ton of creativity in that, and I do it as a money job. But it's I always even those jobs I take because I'm going to meet crew and I'm going to meet people and so I try.
No,
but
absolutely.
we all have to do those.
You have to do that. You have to be able to continue paying the bills sometimes to be able to reach that next thing, which again could open major doors.
Yeah.
The final question is a question that I love asking people, and is that in 50 or 75 years, when people look back on your life and your career and the shows that you've done and the films that you've directed, and they look back and they're like, oh man, Alex, yeah, she was blank. What are 2-3 things that you want people to say of the impact that you left?
Right. Well, let's hope I'm prolific and I have a ton of stuff out there. Yeah, I want to, like, thought-provoking would be nice. You know, it's always good to be funny. But thought-provoking, I mean, I think, like, I do, like I said, want to say things. You know, part of the lady hater thing, and like I said earlier, it's like, even though I wanted to do it, I want to say it, you know, and it's going to spark people talking. It's going to spark a conversation. Yeah,
it's going to make people think. That conversation. Make people have a conversation, which in today's society where everyone's just on their phones all the time, it's good to have conversations.
Yes.
Put the phones down. Yeah. Even you don't have to put the phone, tweet about it, something like that. But be able to just think sometimes about, why are we doing this? Is this what we're supposed to be doing? And can we change? Which is great. Going back to the Advice for a Better Life, is there anyone you want to give credit to? Anyone that you look at and you're like, we talk about the Advice for a Better Life, give credit where credit is due. I just want to remind people of that before we close the show, but do you have anyone that you want to give credit to?
Well, this is going to sound really cheesy, but I'm going to actually thank Ryder for I mean, I really do, you know, his support and him, like, kind of not forcing me. He didn't force me, guys. But encouraging me to direct. I mean, I think that's, like, huge. Him as a director looking at me and saying, I believe in you, you could do this. So
that's awesome. Yeah. Good for him. Thank you, Ryder, if you're watching this. Appreciate it. And anyone who else is watching, again, give credit where credit is due. Again, going back to the quote of, don't claim to be flying when you are standing on the shoulders of giants. There are giants among us. It's okay to be able to say thank you. It's okay to be able to give them credit, because guess what? I guarantee they have to be a giant from getting credit from someone else. So we're all growing, we're all learning. It's exactly what this show is about. Hopefully you guys learned something hearing from Alex. Go support her. You can follow her on social media, on Twitter at Barreto Alex. You're on Instagram? I didn't see.
Same thing, Barreto Alex.
Oh, it is Barreto Alex. I was trying to find it, I couldn't find it. And certainly always grateful to be here on The Popcorn Talk, at The Popcorn Talk on Instagram and on Twitter. If you'd like to follow me after the show, at The Only MC on Instagram and on Twitter. We're live every single Monday. Go follow us on Apple Podcasts. Go like, comment, subscribe. I think it literally takes 3 seconds to go give 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. So take 3 seconds. We appreciate it. We give this content for you guys for free. Just want you to spread the love. Until next week, we'll see you then.
From producers Maria Menounos, Keven Undergaro, Phil Vtec, and the entire Popcorn Talk Network, we would like to thank you for tuning in. For questions or comments, be sure to visit popcorntalk.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of the Popcorn Talk Network.